Hi everyone, my name is Hillary Wasick. I'm currently a graduate student at George Mason University. I'm studying special education and applied behavior analysis. I'm going to talk to you today about Judah Axe, who is a researcher in the field of applied behavior analysis, and some of his contributions to the field and his published research. So Dr. Judah Axe is a researcher who's been in the field of behavior analysis for over 15 years. His research focuses primarily on children with developmental disabilities such as autism. He's especially interested in best teaching practices for communication, language, and social skills. So Dr. Axe is a graduate of Ohio State University. He holds a Master of Arts in Special Education degree. He has a Bachelor of Science in Biology. He has a PhD in Applied Behavior Analysis, and he is a BCBA D, or a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, doctorate level. So Dr. Axe has been an associate professor at Simmons College in Boston, Massachusetts since 2008. He teaches courses there in applied behavior analysis, verbal behavior, research design, and assessment of problem behavior, among other courses. Dr. Axe is very involved in the field of ABA. He currently holds 2 positions within the Association for Behavior Analysis International. He is the chair of the Verbal Behavior Special Interest Group. He's also the co-coordinator for the verbal behavioral area of the annual convention for the Association of Behavior Analysis International. Additionally, he is Student Relations Committee Chair of the Berkshire Association for Behavior Analysis and Therapy. He is the trustee and the continuing education coordinator of the Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies, and he also serves on editorial boards, such as for the Journal of the Analysis of Verbal Behavior. He is also a guest editor on several other editorial boards. In regards to his personal life, Dr. Axe is married and has a young daughter. He lives in Massachusetts, which is where Simmons College is located. So published works, much of Dr. Axe's work, like I said before, is geared towards young children on the autism spectrum. He often collaborates with other researchers. He's reviewed other books in the field. He's written book chapters. He's written several different research articles. Among many other things, like I said, writing articles for journals and editing and all of that. So Dr. Axe has written several different things, but I selected 5 articles for this presentation, which are listed below, that I'll go into more detail in the coming slides. So the first article I looked at was the effects of pre-session pairing on the challenging behavior and academic responding of children with autism. This is one of the articles that Dr. Axe collaborated with others on. So what this study looked at was if pairing prior to instruction could reduce problem behaviors and increase academic responding. So they defined pairing as interacting with the child, giving them social attention, physical attention, talking, playing, laughing with the child before they presented any academic demands. So they had 3 different phases of this study. In the first phase, they did not do any pairing. They would go right into academic demands and instruction with the children. In the second phase, they would give the children access to preferred activities prior to instruction, and the researchers would be in the room, but they would not interact with them socially. The child would play with the preferred item, and the researcher would sit there. In the third situation, the researchers would interact with the child the entire time prior to the session. They would give them social attention, they would talk to them, they would play with them, they would engage in the preferred activities with them before they went into academic work. And this study found that when the researchers did pair before instruction, problem behaviors decreased and academic responding increased. In contrast, the sessions where they did no pairing and they just went right into instruction, the problem behaviors did increase and the academic responding decreased. So I found this article to be very interesting because it does show that pairing obviously has some effect on the child's behavior during the academic session. It's also a very easy study to replicate for educators in their own classrooms because all they really need is some time before they present demands and then some preferred activities that the child enjoys engaging in. So the next article I looked at was using video modeling to teach children with PDD-NOS to respond to facial expressions. Just to clarify, PDD-NOS stands for Pervasive Developmental Disorder Not Otherwise Specified. So that would be a diagnosis such as the diagnosis of autism. So in this study, they used adults to model common facial expressions that they selected, such as sadness, anger, disgust, and then use the same adults to model the appropriate response to those facial expressions. And then they showed both video models to children with autism and PDD-NOS to work on social skills and how to understand the appropriate response to that selected facial expression. And this was actually research that Dr. Axe was the lead researcher on, and they found that the children who received the video modeling were able to pick up on what the appropriate response to the facial expressions were. In addition, they were able to generalize those responses to facial expressions outside of the video modeling. So let's say they selected 6 facial expressions. The children were then able to generalize those responses to other facial expressions other than the 6 selected. The next article I looked at was a comprehensive inclusion program for kindergarten children with autism spectrum disorder. This is an article that Dr. X collaborated with others on. So this looked at the benefits of an inclusion program for kindergartners with autism versus a public school general education classroom. So for this study, they took 2 groups of kindergartners. Both were diagnosed with autism and both were going into their kindergarten year. One group was in the model inclusion program and one group was in a public school general education classroom. So prior to the kindergarten year, the researchers delivered standardized testing to all the children to get a baseline of their skills for things such as language. And during that baseline, all the children in both groups tested the same. So they were all on the same level when they started. At the end of their kindergarten year, the researchers gave them the same standardized test again and found that across the board, the kindergartners with autism who were in the model inclusion program tested well above the kindergartners who were in the public school general education setting. So again, I found this very interesting because it does show evidence that the inclusion program is more successful and that those kindergartners that were in that program were able to score higher than their peers, starting out from a baseline that they were the same. So the next article I looked at was using matrix training of pre-literacy skills with preschoolers with autism. This was an article that Dr. Axe was the lead researcher on. So in the research, they used matrix training to generalize pre-literacy skills, such as following directions. If you're not familiar with matrix training, what it is it's a set template with a set number of pictures and directions that correspond with those pictures. So when they were doing the matrix training, they only taught the directions in the pictures that fell along the diagonal. They did not teach the other ones. So ideally, those taught connections would generalize to the untaught connections that were not taught on the diagonal. So for example, on the diagonal, there might have been a picture of the pen and the direction would be to pick up the pen. So the children were taught how to correctly follow that direction, how to correspond with the picture, and they were worked with on that. Outside of that diagonal, there might be a picture of a pen and the direction was to drop. So what they found in this study was that the children were able to generalize that the pen and the direction to drop meant they should drop the pen, even though they had never been specifically taught that response. This is very interesting to me because those matrices can be individualized. So the directions in the pictures could be used by educators for children in their own classrooms to teach these pre-literacy skills. In addition, it does expose children to being able to follow directions, which is very important once they're in school and they're getting assignments with directions, standardized testing, things along those lines. They need to be able to understand how to follow the directions and use those pre-literacy skills. So the last article I looked at is actually very recent. It was just published this month, so November of 2016. Dr. X was the lead researcher on this article. The effects of contingent pairing on establishing praise as a reinforcer for children with autism. So this study stated that often verbal praise and social stimuli are not inherently reinforcing for children with autism. And they wanted to see if they paired that verbal praise with items that have been identified as highly reinforcing, if they could eventually fade out the preferred items and just have the children able to use verbal praise as a reinforcer. They did find that it's possible, but it does take many sessions to get to that point, and you would need several sessions to make sure to generalize and maintain the skill. But it is a good stepping stone for educators to be able to start working on and know that it is going to take some time to have that verbal praise be the only reinforcer the child is receiving. In summary, I really felt like Dr. Axe's work provides a ton of evidence-based practices for teachers like myself to implement in their own classrooms. He's really setting high standards for educators. I also felt like his work is really easy to apply, and it's definitely something that people like me can use in their own classrooms. I actually used some of his research on the video modeling with some of my students. I teach children with autism age 13 to 20. So, I mean, I was able to, in 5 minutes, read through the article, get some materials together, and try some video modeling with some of my students, and it was really successful, and that was just a really quick thing that I got out of reading that article. So I do think that his work is really easy to apply. It's really on target for what's important to educators like myself, and, he's really giving me a lot of great ideas for best teaching practices. If you're interested in more of Dr. Axe's work, I really suggest you look him up because I learned a lot and I'm already using it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and look up some of Dr. Axe's work if you're interested. Thank you.